record this now, so I'll be appropriate. Not that I wasn't before I hit record. So whoever's watching this, just know that the entire process has been appropriate. Yeah, so we'll give it a minute or two.
Here's everything.
I don't know if
one of us is not.
I haven't been told I needed to take attendance or anything, but just in case I do, just go into the chat and say that you're here. This way I don't have to screenshot your faces, because that gets really annoying sometimes. And I'll make sure to tell whoever needs to know that you were here with me. So I figure at 1:02, we'll officially start. Let's see who's on here. A lot of familiar faces. I miss y'all. Even though like we're not on campus really, right? So I wouldn't be able to see you anyway, even if I was still at the school. It's still kind of just, I'm already missing the classroom, even though my classroom would have been, you know, my home office. Go one more minute and then we'll get started. So I guess before we like start, have any of you used a digital notebook in your class before? Because
I used one in the, I guess during the break, my student teacher helped me. But I guess we created it in Google, and we created, I don't know, somehow he told me to create a virtual, like I created a folder, it was called virtual folder, and then I created all my 7 periods, and then I shared that with every student. So I started putting their email in, and I guess it would pop up. And so for those 10 kids that were actually attending that distance learning at that time, then each one got their, I guess the shared, I don't know, page or whatever. And then when we did bell work, they would put their comments in, and then I could go back and see when they did edits and entries and all that. So I don't know if that's the same thing.
Sort of. So there's, I mean, if you Google digital notebooks, so it's 1:02, so we'll just get started. Consider this part of the introduction, right? If you Google digital notebooks, a multitude of things is going to come up. There are literal services that we can purchase that are digital notebooks, or there's every, you know, tech-savvy teacher's way of doing it. I'm going to show you the way that I have used in the past and the way that I think is much more organized and manageable, and in a way provides some useful skills. And that's using Google Sites. And there's another popular way is using slides. My only issue with slides is you can end up with a Google slide presentation of 300, 400, 500 slides, and it's very hard to navigate that. The way that I use is using Google Sites, and I think it's a much more user-friendly and visually appealing way of doing it, and I'm gonna show you why I think so. If you never have used Google Sites before and you've never created a site on Google Sites, that's another training that I'd be happy to do if anyone needs it. It is very, very, very user-friendly and very easy to do. Most of the sites that I've built, I use Google Sites just because it's not like super customizable. So there's not a lot of bells and whistles, which is good if you just want something basic. And it gets the job done. So I'm going to share my screen, and I created sort of a mock notebook for y'all to take a look at.
And can you
Can y'all see this right now? Does it say, just give me just someone shout, yeah, thumbs up? All right, good. I'll take that. So here's a mock notebook, right? If I were a freshman, this is kind of what it would, and right now you're in like the editing phase. So let me show you what it would look like if I were, you know, presenting it. It would be, here's my notebook. You can see at the top, I have pages for the courses that I'm taking, and then I can personalize it As you see, I personalized this one that is a picture of my wife and my son and myself. This is also, full disclosure, I like to exploit the cuteness of my baby. So any chance I get to put his picture out there, I will happily do so. So the homepage is really like their personalized page. Just like if you see a student and they have a physical notebook and they put a whole bunch of stickers and stuff on the front of bands that they like or shows that they watch or memes that they love. This is the same thing. They can customize that homepage so that it's their notebook, right? And we want to encourage that because we want them to kind of personalize it. Okay, so let me go back to the editing phase. I need to move my face out of the way. So here we have the editor, right? So you would edit the homepage, and I could show you all how to do that, and we'll add pages and do all this other stuff, but I wanted you to see what it looks like. So this is a typical, 4 core freshman course. You have your social studies, ELAR, science, and math course. So on each of these pages, they would put content. Now, you can see over here on the right-hand side, this is where if they were going to insert stuff into this, they could do all these different things, and they could do it in different layouts. So let's say on the personal page, like the personalization page, I want to insert some more, pictures to make it my personal thing. I can put more pictures in. I can put a big picture in with smaller ones. You can see all the different layouts that you have here. But let's say I wanted to put a table of contents. I don't really need to put a table of contents on the home page because I have my different pages up here. But when I get to those, I may want to. As you can see, you can put maps, docs, slides, sheets, and these are going to come into play when we start looking at the individual pages. But if you think about this as like a 5-subject notebook or a 3-subject notebook, here, these pages are going to act as those dividers. So I'm going to have my section of the notebook for world geography, and I'm going to have my section of the notebook for English, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so let's look at the first page. The only thing I added stuff to is this world geography page because it will be the same for the other ones. So let's say every day I'm taking notes, okay? And the notes that I'm taking, I'm typing out because it's a digital notebook, and I want to make sure I can organize those. You'll see here I put notes for 9-2, notes for 9-1, notes for 8-31. So every time they add notes, they'll take notes in Google Docs, and they can add the notes to this page. They can rearrange it so some kids, they want the first thing to see to be the oldest, or the first thing they see to be the newest. They can arrange it however they wish. So they're going to take their Google Docs, and rather than just keeping like a folder of, because that's our first thought as well. If they're doing it in Google Docs, why don't they just keep one thing and keep scrolling through it? You could have one document with all of your notes on it, but that is going to be a pain to constantly scroll through to find exactly what you need. So for me, I like to break it down, day by day. Like, here are the notes I took for this day. And I'm going to show you why I think that's a more successful way to do it. You'll see that I've added some stuff here. I've added a slides presentation. So let's say you, the teacher, are presenting on XYZ day, and these are the slides. You share them with the student. Well, these are the slides that Mr. Abdel shared with us today. I can keep them here, right? I can add those, whether I make a copy or whether you have it where they can manipulate it. I'm going to put a copy of those slides in my digital notebook, right next to the day that you showed it to us, along with my notes for that day. So now let's say that these slides go with my September 1st notes. There are the slide, there are my notes. I can pull everything right there. It's already organized. And let's say I'm going through, maybe you share videos, maybe you share PDF documents, maybe you share anything with them, or on their own if they're researching stuff. Like, I put a link to a video here for a crash course in geography, and I put in my notes, and they could type notes next to it. And I'll show you how to do this on one of the other pages. I put notes next to this. I found this video the other day and explained stuff I didn't understand right away. I'll use this to study for this test. I didn't want to lose it. So rather than having a bookmark folder in their Google Chrome that's 40 or 50 entries long, I could just embed the video here and say, hey, when I'm studying my stuff from 831, here's a good video that helped me understand it. So the notebook actually becomes a warehouse of all their notes. Anything you share with them, anything they may have shared with you, they can put their assignments in here as well as things that they find themselves that are going to help them study. So the digital notebook offers a lot more than what a regular notebook would, because even if they were writing it down, they're going online and they're looking up, crash course stuff. They're looking up Khan Academy videos on YouTube, anything like that. They can embed the links in here. They can put whatever they want in here. So it's a one-stop shop to help them understand how to, categorize and organize everything. Now, the thing I like about using Google Sites for my digital notebook is the likelihood of our students having to build a website for some point in their life, whether it be for assignments in college, whether it be for creating a digital portfolio, whether it be for designing a website later on in life. It's a good skill to have, to know like the aesthetics and at least the basics of web design. So rather than using just one single solitary thing, just like Google Slides or like Notepad, because there's a function in Notepad that you can use. I like this because it gives them that transferable skill to later on. So before I show you how to actually go about doing these things, I will pause and take questions. So if anybody has any questions about how I've utilized it or anything like that.
Can you tell me, and maybe I missed this, I don't know. So you have this as your notebook, and then and the kids are posting into your notebook, or do they have individual ones themselves?
No, they're going to create it on their own. This is just like an example that I had created. So if I were a student, this would what my notebook would look like. But they're going to create it on their own. They all have a Google account because of their school account. So they can all create multiple websites. Now, they could conceivably create a website for each course. I just think that's way too confusing and unmanageable. But if that's how their brain works, and they say, all right, I'm going to create one for each of my 6 or 7 classes, then yeah, they can easily do that. They could just name it my world history site, my, whatever notebook.
Do you provide this for them as kind of a blueprint and they structure their notebook that way, or is it really just they design it, they have free range on it?
So this one in particular I created over the weekend just to be a bare bones one, but I have a fully formed one that I show them, like this is all the things that you can do, which has a lot more content and stuff in it so that they understand how to go about that. And yeah, I show them that and I say, this is how you can go about creating it. And then I let them know if they have any questions, in terms of first steps and how to do things, like the technical stuff that they can ask me. But it's very, very intuitive. It's very user friendly. So I don't get a lot of questions in terms of how to put stuff in there.
David? So I'm thinking for many of our kids, that would be yet another learning curve at the beginning of the year to have to figure a lot of that out. Have you ever considered, or is there a way, and I think this is where she may have been going, pardon me for interrupting, is there any way to create like a template where kids could just copy the template and start writing everything from their notes to their assignments to their labs to their creative, so that they wouldn't have the gigantic learning curve of having to create it all themselves? Even though it may be intuitive, it's still probably a lot for some of our students.
Yeah, you can create, just like you would with any Google Doc or slides presentation, you can create a template and share it with them where they just make a copy and then add stuff to it rather than having to start from square one.
I have a question, David. If they have the tabs, which I completely understand having it tabbed, can they share one tab with you, or do they share the whole notebook with you?
They would share the whole notebook. So if you wanted to do like a notebook check, they would just, you can literally just catalog their notebook, right? So if you wanted to save all the links, and then every time something's due, you could just click on theirs and do it.
Okay.
Or if you put it through Canvas, they can give you that specific like page link. So I'm still sharing, right? So
Yes.
Let me minimize this. So if I wanted to share just my world geography page, right? I would go here and copy, and you can see how it ends with.
Oh,
world
awesome.
geography.
Okay.
And they could just keep submitting that world geography page.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, David?
Yep.
Can they, so Google Search, right, they're creating like is for privacy concerns, can they control who has access from the public to this? Like, can they make it only people inside the school district or only,
Yep.
no?
So
Or
right here in the
teachers?
sharing with others, it's just like you would with any, you could share it with just the teacher and by putting their name in here. If you wanted to share it with the whole class, you could change the settings down here. It's
Okay.
completely up to them. Most kids, I'll be honest, they only shared it with me. They never even like published it to any public domain. It was always just shared with me.
And then how do you get notifications of when the student, or do you get notifications of when the students turn things in?
No, I've never used it as something for assignments. Occasionally, I would say, make sure you upload whatever we did to your website, but I always kind of had it submitted through Canvas and graded through Canvas. What I like about adding to that is if let's say we do a lot of writing in social studies, right? So they write this essay, I put comments in there, and we workshop through it. I then tell them when we're done, put that one that we've fixed with all the comments and notes, put that one on your site so that you can reflect back and say, remember when we covered this at this essay, and they'll see the essay in there that's not the one they submitted, but the one that we went through that has all my notes and suggestions. It's good because, if you think about it, right, when in a perfect world, right, when we take an assignment from a student, we work on it, we grade it, we give it back to them, and then they put it in their 5-subject notebook with their notes in that little folder, and they carry it with them at all times, and whenever we ask them, we can pull it out and show it. I know that's not realistic. However, with a digital notebook, it is realistic because you just tell them, upload it in there, and then it's there. They can't lose it. They can't have their backpack stolen. They can't, take it out on the bus home and it falls out and their dog eats it, and it's there, saved always. Any other questions before I get into the technical, like how to do it?
Can you share your template with us to make a copy of? Because that would be really, really helpful to get it started.
Absolutely. In fact, let me see if I could just do that now. I'll make it public, and then might need to publish it first. And then I'll put this in the chat. So let's say I wanted to create a new page, right? So I have my 4 courses. I am going to add this. I added a 5th class, right? I'm going to go to insert, or I'm sorry, I'm going to go to pages because I'm adding a new page, right? And you can see here's my home and then my 4 pages. So let's say now I'm taking, what's a good elective? Let's say culinary. Right? And I'm going to upload tons of pictures of my food because it's going to be wonderful. Yes. One student can have, I had a question, I'm sorry, in the chat. One student can have one digital notebook with all their courses, or they can manage several. I think it's easier to manage one. So here's my culinary page, right? And then I can go in and change it to, change the font, change all that stuff. But, and that's part of the customization. So now that I've created a new page, I'm going to go back to insert, right? And let's say I'm going to insert.
David, check your mic. You're breaking up a little bit.
I know. So this doesn't have a microphone, so I'm kind of shouting at my laptop. So I apologize. I'll try and talk slower so that it reads my speed a little bit. I know when I talk fast, it doesn't catch it very well. Let's say I wanted to input a recipe that I created, and that recipe was on Google Docs, right? I would go down there to Docs, and I would choose the document. You'll see there's a whole bunch that are listed, and you can go through all your docs and insert a doc. Or let's say I wanted to put a picture of the food that I made. Say my assignment was to go home and make a meatloaf and take a picture of it. So I'm gonna take a picture of it. I'm gonna upload an image from my computer, and it would go right there. Or let's say I wanted to put an image and text. Insert image, text. I could say, my meatloaf. And then here I could say I added ground turkey, right? Because we're gonna be healthy. Pepper, salt, and whatever else makes meatloaf good. I'm a vegan, so I don't eat meatloaf. I don't know what goes in it. And I would put the picture in there. Here you can see there's several different things, right? Let's say I created a video and I put it on YouTube of literally me making the meatloaf. I can go ahead and go down here and put a YouTube link to my actual video, and it will come up. Let's say I'm afraid of what's about to come up when I YouTube people, but let's find out. I have a sneaking suspicion in the back of my head that it was going to be this meatloaf and not anything having to do with an actual meatloaf. But because this meatloaf is great, and I actually just told the student to watch Rocky Horror Picture Show starring Meatloaf, we're going to add Meatloaf's music video. So you can see you can put a link and it comes up with the video right then and there. Nothing makes meatloaf good. So you can see all the different Google apps that you can input. You can put forms in there. You can put slides. Like I said, I used to share all my slides with my students so that they can go back and review. And I asked them to kind of put this with their notebook so that they know, oh, these slides go with these notes, and they wouldn't have to figure it out. But then you could put little things. You could put a divider in there so they know, okay, this is the next thing. If you wanted to break it up by like units, they can put a table of contents, and the table of contents will start to break things down for them. This is one of my favorite ones, an image carousel, so they could put like 4 or 5 different images on there. So if you wanted them to create like a picture show for an assignment. So all the different Google things that are in there. If you wanted to put a link, you can embed a link. If there's anything else on the drive, you can just go right to the drive. So this is how they start to organize and embed things into their site. It's, like I said, it's really just click. Yes, exactly. They really just click and put the things in there. So the trick, or not really the trick, but essentially what you need to train them to do is when they're taking notes, if you saw on that World Geography page, the first thing with notes, whatever date, you could always put a text box next to it, but I like to just put the date of the notes in there and create separate documents for each day. We know that they're not going to go back into their Google Drive and find the documents whenever we need them to, but if they have them organized on this site, then they just need to pull up their site and it's there for them. It kind of takes away the mystery of having to search for things. What other questions do you guys have? Like I said, it's fairly simple. It's just a matter of, one, correct them, that learning curve, getting them used to doing something they're not used to doing. But as far as inputting stuff into it, it's just kind of clicking and dragging at that point.
So once you hit, okay, so you're creating your page right now, and then the publish button, that's going to actually add it to your web page at that point, or? Yeah, so if I don't publish, then it's not going to like, if I gave you the published link, you wouldn't be able to see anything unless I publish it. So it's kind of like saying, okay, this is good. I'm ready to put this onto the server so that it can be used.
Is there any way for like mathematic problems to be put onto the page or put onto the site?
Yeah, so if you think about it, what I love about being able to just put a text box is once I go in that text box, and you can see I can play with the parameters of how large I want it. I can write whatever I want. So, you know, if they were to put that in there, or if they were to, I know they all have the snipping tool on their computer. So, you know, if they were to snip a math problem and put it on there, like if you were doing a demo in your class and here's, you know, the breakdown of how it works mathematically and the same thing, you could just share that with them and they can insert it on there and then take notes. So I could put a picture of that math problem here and then put the explanation or whatever there. So anything that you give them, they can find a way to either, you know, snip a picture of it, or if you use Google products, to just immediately take it. Do you need to have a teacher one, or just provide the kids a template? You don't need a teacher one. I don't ever really use mine. I just give them, I give them like the one that I made that has a whole bunch of stuff on it, so they see what it can look like if they put the effort in and keep up with it. But I don't even give them a template. I sort of let them just go crazy with it. Oh, if you want the actual, I should probably do that, like how to even get to it. I thought I heard someone that was about to ask a question first, though, and then I'll go back to that. No? Okay. So I'll show you guys how to just go straight from the get-go. So sometimes it comes up in our little, you know, waffle over here, but unless you add it to your waffle, it doesn't. So just go to Google Sites. And then just like you would create, you know, any other Google Doc by hitting that plus. So you see I have one down here that I'm working on for our social studies department across the district. That's just a sneak peek. I'm not ready to roll that out yet, so I haven't published it yet. So I would just go here, blank, right? And there are already templates that are in there that are formatted differently than I format mine. So you can kind of look through those, but you just go and hit blank.
Abdul, can you go back one page on this?
Yep.
Like if I have a blank screen, my desktop, how do I start to get to this?
Oh, just, I hate when I have to say this, but it's like, just Google
Sites,
Google
okay.
Sites.
After that?
And then if you're signed in, it should take you right to here.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And then there's this thing down here that's, because this is their new sites. If you are very, what's a good way to say this? There's a less visual way to do this. If you're a little bit more nuanced in programming, the classic sites is a bit more, it's like the Windows 95 version of this. So if that's your speed, you could use that, but it's nowhere near as intuitive.
Like a navigator?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So then here you have a completely blank site, right? And you can see none of this stuff is updated because we haven't published it yet. So I would just name it My Notebook and I'll call it My Notes 2. Same thing here, change my title page. Notebook. I can't type or spell anything correctly. And then same thing, when I'm ready, I would publish it so that it's ready to go. And publishing it doesn't mean like putting it on the internet for everyone to find. It just means it's registering the site and giving it a name. And then start from scratch, insert new pages. You can mess with the theme. So I'm a big Aristotle fan. You may not be, but like I said, it's limited in what you can do. But I think that might be a good thing. So if you like the different themes and styles, you can mess with the colors to an extent, so on and so forth. You can even, if you get into like a more detailed customization, you can change where the toolbar goes and where the menu bar goes. You could have it on the side. You can change all these different types of things. So there is some ability to customize in there. But I think for the most part, we should try and keep it simple. And the students that are, wanting to go in there and learn how to customize, go ahead and let them. But the ones that you just want them to like get the hang of it, get it done, just say, stick to this.
So just a question. So once you get this done and you publish it, you just said publishing is just pretty much just registering that it's done?
Yeah.
And then how do you share with your students? You just press that share button that's up here and
Yeah,
you put
so
the
you could-
email, or do you just put it on your Canvas page?
You can do it one of two ways. You can share it like where they can see it and then they can go and make a copy, or you can share it so it's like, see how this is listed as editor? You can make a template and just have them be viewer so that they can look at it and hit make a copy. Or if you want them to get in and kind of like, if you made like a dummy one that you actually want them to physically go and play around with, you can set them up to be editors as well. I don't usually do that because who knows what they'll do. But yeah, so if you wanted to send, let me go back to my other one real quick. If you wanted them to see it, you would just copy this, right? So I'm going to copy this and I'll put it in the chat right now, and you can go and take a look at it. Let me put it to everyone. And then same thing that I always do is just preview it to make sure what I did in the first time, to make sure like everything looks and works okay. And then this I think is important too, is the unpublish. So at the end of the year, let's say they don't want this notebook kind of just hanging out there in the world, they could just unpublish it. What I've told students is it would be kind of cool to keep it all 4 years. Like if we start at the freshman year and we just keep adding to it, by the time they graduate, they'll have a notebook of everything they've learned in high school digitally, which I think is kind of cool. I can't tell you the number of kids that I've taught that have graduated and now they're taking history classes in college and they're like, hey, do you still have the whatever? And I'm like, yeah, you do too. You have it in your digital notebook. Like just go, and they're like, oh, I forgot about that. And they go and they pull up all my old slides and their notes. And so it's a cool resource to have.
So I just wanted to ask this just to be clear. So when a kid creates this notebook, it's up to them if they're going to use for each page a different subject. So there's a chance that, let's just say if I want them to have a digital notebook, there's a chance that when they share it with me so I can grade their notes, I'm going to find my page if they set it up right, because chances are they might not, but if they did, they would have each tab labeled like you do. So I would see their notes from other subjects. I would have to go to that tab so I could grade it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can send you just the link to their site overall or just the link to their individual page, but you can always hit home and then go see the other pages. Which, maybe it's a good thing if you notice like, hey, your geometry page is completely blank. What are you doing in that class? And then get on them for not keeping good notes in that class. What else?
So how do you house all of these? So you have all of these notebooks that you have access to, then where do you put them? Are they just in a folder on Google, or does it work that way since you went to sites?
So I actually don't. There's two ways. They can add me to their notebook, like I showed you by adding my email, or they could just send, like if I do a weekly notebook check, they could just send me the link. Because if they add me, then yeah, it'll clog up my Google Sites page, or it'll clog up. You can create a folder in your Drive that's just Google Sites from students, and then you just don't mind what you can't see. But I don't need to be the administrator on their page. I could just say, hey, on every Friday, send me the link to your notes so I can check and make sure you've done it.
Okay, thanks. I
So,
was just trying
Abdul,
you said that they
if-
used it for
if-
several
go ahead.
years. I wasn't sure how you would,
Yeah.
all of these students, you might even have students with the same name. Like, how do you keep up with it? So, okay.
My question was, because I've never used it, so I do not know. If you have to list the points, like how is it better than Google Doc? Can you tell me something about that?
So what I like about this is if everyone just took their notes in a Google Doc, right? Like if you think about 1 year's worth of notes in one Google Doc, that's several pages and pages and pages and pages. So if they're trying to find a specific thing, yeah, they could do a keyword search for it, but that may come up 5 or 6 different times. But if they know, hey, I need to review just my first semester stuff, they can put the Google Doc as in addition to their notes on their page, but they can also put all this other stuff, right? So if I know that I really enjoyed whatever video that helped me study when I did my notes, or I want to make sure I could see the notes plus the slides that they go to, I don't have to look in 2 or 3 different places. This notebook can have all of my notes that I took, plus all of the things I found on the internet, plus everything the teacher gave me, plus all of my assignments. So this just becomes a warehouse of everything connected to their digital course. Or even if we were back to physical school, you can still have them do this, have them, they could, if they prefer to write their notes, and I've had students do this before, just take a picture and add the picture so that you have your copy of the notes. It's just, some kids are just going to want a physical written notebook, and there's nothing you can do. And I don't know that we want to be in a place where we tell them not to do that, right? But if we want to take this as either a graded assignment or something to that where we're kind of forcing them to use it, then there are ways for them to get that physical written work into the website. So I like it because
basically navigation within the document, you're saying.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just take all the different components of their learning and put it into one spot where they can
In one
organize
place.
it.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
To piggyback on that question, is there a way for students to hide, like if say you're within that world geography part of your notebook, can you hide sections of it so you avoid that endless scroll that we're talking about in the Google Doc? How would you suggest a student organizes it?
So I'm a big sequential, so I like things to go, but it may not be that that's how they like that, right? So they can use this divider and put in, this can be, let's say you want all the notes, like you as the teacher say, I want all the notes in one section, right? I can reorganize it so I want all my notes. So the first half would be all notes. And then I could say, I'm gonna put in a divider, right? And now everything below the divider is gonna be my videos, and then everything below that is gonna be, I'm gonna put in another divider, and this is gonna be everything after